was an item on the local news the other day about a guy who had married a woman who was very wealthy, and over a period of time he then got a bit fed up with the relationship and was seeing somebody else. But he decided he didn't want to end the relationship because, of course, it would mean he'd miss out financially. And so he came up with a cunning plan to kill her, which he did. And then when all this came out, of course, it emerged that he'd had this carefully planned for a long period. And so in him being sentenced, the judge, saying, well, this is, cold-blooded, it's, premeditated. And so I suppose you contact very differently with the woman who, after a long period of abuse by her partner, one day suddenly snapped and killed him by smashing a pot over his head. I suppose that would be seen much more as in the moment, a crime of passion. So a little while ago I was listening to, there's a programme on Radio 4 called The Reunion, and that's where Sue McGregor gets together people who've been involved in some important moments in event in history, and then she gets them together and to reflect on that. And I was listening to one where she had 5 guys who'd been prisoners of war in with the Japanese in 1940-44. And as part of this, they were talking about how America came to enter the war, which some of you may or not. It was when the Japanese attacked some American military ships who are based in Pearl Harbour, which is in Hawaii, in Honolulu. That was widely seen to be a key moment in America, entering the war, and obviously an important moment in terms of what happened subsequently. But what struck me was that they played a little bit of President Roosevelt talking to the American people about it. And he was explaining to them what happened and what the American response would be. But one of the things he said in the course of this, he said that the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbour was premeditated. And I kind of get why you might do that, because, we've said before, it's much worse if it's premeditated to like a crime of passion. But I did wonder about comparing some sort of military operation with a crime of passion like that. And there are 3 things that kind of strike me about that. Oh, excuse me. The first is that, the military is known for operating a management structure based on what we call the chain of command. And they tend to be quite strict about that. So, there's not that much opportunity for autonomy, certainly if you're in the lower ranks. And also it's probably fair to say, although it may be a bit of a generalisation, that the Japanese military have embraced this sort of chain of command idea to a great extent. So it seems it's very unlikely that the commanders of the ships in the area suddenly got together and said, I'm fed up with firing blanks and doing all these exercises. I understand there's a load of American warships in Pearl Harbour. It'd be like shooting fish in a barrel. Let's just go for it. I can't see it. And the third thing is that the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbour, I just read this, required 6 aircraft carriers and 353, that's very exact, but over 350 aircraft of different sorts to carry out the attack. And it seems to me actually it's highly unlikely that you'd have that kind of military hardware just around there. So it seems to be really Roosevelt's comment about premeditation. It kind of goes without saying. It doesn't need to be said. We can assume that. And this kind of raises 2 other questions for me. So first, when you come to evaluate the military success of the Allies' landings, invasion 1944 in Normandy, which, bear in mind, involved 3,000 reconnaissance pictures, 3 years of intelligence gathering, large-scale misdirection, that the invasion would actually be at the Pas de Calais. It involved gathering over 156,000 troops. It involved 500,000 backup people to make sure that the soldiers at the front had fuel, food, healthcare. Then we have the paratroopers that were sent in behind enemy lines. Over 3,000 landing craft of various sorts that had to be assembled. Not to mention, of course, the air superiority. When you come to judge that as a military exercise, does the fact it was premeditated affect your judgment? And the second thing about that is we have to imagine now that the German High Command, after the landings, and what do you think their messaging was? Did it go something like this? Yesterday, the Allies invaded Normandy and sought to retake the land that we had freshly invaded. Not only that, though, not only did they invade us, we've got reason to believe that this is based on 3 years of intelligence gathering, large-scale misdirection, that we think they were invading the Pas-de-Calais, gathering over 156,000 troops, that there was some 500,000 backup, that to organise healthcare, fuel and rations. They even sent in paratroopers beyond our lines, and over 3,000 landing crafts. So not only that, we feel that it was a premeditated invasion, the bastards.